Okay, so hey guys, welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Rozicki versus Peralta rematch. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Rozicki is 20-0 with 19 KOs and Peralta is 17-1 with 9 KOs. This fight is for the WBC Interim World Cruiserweight title. Rozicki's last fight was a win via TKO in round 1 versus Duaroldola, and Peralta's last fight was a win via split decision versus Mchunu. Their first fight ended with a Rozicki win via split decision in 2022, and I think that would then got overturned into a no contest. I'm not entirely sure if that's true or not. This is in Rozicki's home country of Canada. Rozicki is 29 and Peralta is 33. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, obviously this is a rematch. It's for that WBC interim title, and I suppose the main talking point going into it is the fact that it is for that interim title. It's finally Rozicki getting this opportunity to, fight for a title. It's not a full world title like he's been chasing for the past couple years, but it's a fight, and they've finally called for an interim title. I think it's more than about time, realistically. I mean, Mikhailian is the champion. He's been scheduled to fight Rozicki, I believe, twice officially, and both times he's pulled out through, I believe, injuries or through some sort of reason. And he's only fought twice in 4 years, or I believe going on 4 years. And for a champion, he's just been holding up the belts, really making it difficult for the cruiserweight division to progress. And when there is a lot of realistically great names in the cruiserweight division at the moment, it's been about time that we're seeing the cruiserweight division move on. And, I think this is the start of it. I mean, when Zerda Ramirez beat Galtieri, that was another case of the cruiserweight division getting held up, and like I say, it's about time it's getting moved along. And like I say, I think it is getting moved along now. Rozicki is really being frustrated waiting all this time, and he's been saying a lot of things. I think he is an underrated fighter in a great division. I think a division is flying at the moment. I mean, you just look at just a few weeks ago, we had Zerda Ramirez versus Billam Smith. That was an excellent contest, and a contest in which I'm glad happened. I'm glad we saw it. It's seemingly like these matchups are finally getting made. Zerda Ramirez looked excellent. Billam Smith gave it his all and was very resilient. You also have the likes of Opataya, who's doing amazing things as well as he makes his return versus Sin Cara in January to his home country. So the division is in a very good spot at the moment. You also have the likes of Richard Riakporhe still floating about, and Seslak and other big names as well that's still floating about. So a guy like Rozicki could definitely slide into that, and I think his style is that entertaining enough to be able to, like I say, slide into that and be amongst the takeover in which I believe is happening with Canadian boxing. I think there's a lot of Canadian fighters who are very good who are finally getting put on show a little bit more, and not just that, fighters are representing Canada and fighting out of Canada even if they're not from there. The main kind of example you see at the moment is Ozez Iglesias. He's taking over with brutal knockouts that you see continuously, similar to that of Umbili. He's taken over as well, not quite as I suppose brutal, but he's finally getting this world kind of level attention, and he's fighting often out of Canada. And in general, I think it's excellent to see that Canada is consistently having events. They have good women's champions as well. They got Sarah Bailey and Amanda Gaye, and like I said, there are champions there as well. So Canada, I think, is slowly taking over with their fighters, and I think Rozicki is a big name to come through. I have faith that if he is able to get to a world championship level, if he's able to win this fight, if he goes on to fight Zerda Ramirez and Opataya, one of the great champions, he will make an entertaining contest out of it. And where you see his record as well, 19 KOs in 20 fights, it's very impressive. And what he's doing is going under the radar, and I think it's about time that it's put on a limelight, and perhaps this might be the start of it. And Peralta, it's not he's not an opponent you can sleep on. He's obviously had the first fight against Rozicki. He made it Rozicki's only fight that he didn't win via stoppage. He survived, he did what he had to do, he didn't box badly, everybody thought that he won. Obviously, I think it's been overturned from what I've read. It was all Canadian officials for the first fight, and there was a bit of an uproar about that, and Peralta has managed to, I believe, get it overturned to a no contest because of that. I'm not too sure, it doesn't officially say that on his record, but I'm not too sure, if that was true or not. But like I say, everybody thought that Peralta won the fight. It was Canadian judges and a Canadian fighter in Canada, so of course they're probably going to have that bias. And in general, I think it's just great to see that they are going back and taking this opponent again. Rozicki obviously has the one blemish on his record versus Rivas. That was earlier on in his career. It was a bad, defeat really, but I think he's learned a lot from that and improved from that. And a fight like a Peralta fight is definitely a fight in which I'm glad that he's going back to pick up on. It's an opponent who, like I say, is a very good opponent, an opponent who also is underrated as well. And he's coming off good wins. Perhaps having multiple split decision wins, his style isn't the most aggressive. It's definitely a stylistic matchup that is bad for Rozicki, but you have to be able to beat and defend against all types of fighters, and that's what Rozicki I think is learning. And by him, not fighting Mikhailian, he's given Peralta this opportunity again to come back and see if he is capable of actually being able to beat Rozicki. He was very close, and he's given him that second chance now. Peralta, I respect him as well because he's been going elsewhere for fights. He fought the first time versus Rozicki in Canada. He then typically fights out of Argentina, that is seemingly his home country, and that's where he's fighting out of. But he also has just fought his last fight in South Africa against Chunu, who, like I say, going to his home country to fight him. So I respect Peralta kind of just doing what he has to do, fighting who he has to fight to be able to progress on and getting up the rankings a bit as well. And, it's nice to see. Seemingly, though, like I said, this is in Canada, but this is on its own kind of island. It's in Sydney, Canada, off the coast of Canada, like it's an island of some sort. And from what I've heard, it'll be the first world title fight in that uh, country, or in on the island. That's just from what I've heard as well. So that's another attribute. I'm sure that's another reason why Rozicki would want to come through and get another win. But I think it was in the same venue in the first fight as well. So I'm not too sure if it'll make much of a difference. I just thought I'd mention it. I mean, Rozicki, the run he's been on as of recent since that Peralta fight, he's had quite a few fights since. It's been a brutal run, coming off that first round TKO last time out. Before that was Atalante Green. That first round TKO went viral because it was a knockout of the year contender. It was a huge knockout, and Rozicki, like I say, is making a name for himself. And after the tough fight versus Peralta, you were going to be questioning if Rozicki was going to be able to keep up fighting at the level that he was fighting and knocking out the guys in which he was doing. He's just gone back to doing it like it's nothing, and it's very impressive and very entertaining, like I mentioned as well. To speak about them both individually as fighters, so Rozicki as a fighter, he's very imposing. He's a big figure. He's also quite a scary figure. I think it's something in which goes under the radar. Fighters having that fear factor about them. When they have that fear factor, opponents do get scared and do get wary. I don't think Peralta was in that first fight, but certain opponents do. They'll look at him in the eyes. Rozicki has a mean stare, a horrible looking stare where he looks like he is just going to go in there and try and rip your head off. And that's what I'm saying. He has that imposing, scary type of style about him. He gets you on the ropes, and when he gets you on the ropes, it's very difficult to be able to deal with him. Peralta did very well in that first fight, but typically in general, if he gets you on the ropes, he's gonna offload shots and he's gonna walk you down. He's gonna outwill you. When you speak about fighters offering an onslaught, especially in the earlier rounds, Rozicki is going to put on multiple onslaughts. I think that's the best definition of saying it. Commentators will say that word a lot, but I think the definition of it probably would be through what Rozicki does in his fights. He changes levels well. I think he will rip to the body very well as well. And, everything he throws is thrown with bad intentions. He doesn't let you escape a lot of the time. You see Atalante Green, when he moved off the ropes, he just got caught with a massive shot because Rozicki didn't let him go and didn't let him kind of circle away. And yeah, that's another thing that makes fighters feel like they are trapped. It has that kind of claustrophobic effect to it. He overwhelms you. He's got that devastating power. He gets in close. Typically, he's quite good to getting in close. He tries to sometimes come with that Mike Tyson type style where you're kind of ducking from side to side with your head. Doesn't always work, but in general, he is typically good at getting in close. He beats you down. He breaks you down a lot of the time. He cuts off the ring, I think, typically well. In that first fight versus Peralta, I think he may have had a bit of trouble doing it at times, but since then, I think he's improved and he's been able to do that better. He makes opponents fight his fight a lot of the time, and that's a benefit for him. He's very aggressive, and you have to have that. And when you ask me like Rozicki, that is something that favours him the most. Negatives about him, I think perhaps he rushes in a bit at times and can get caught with the odd pot shot. Peralta was doing very good at kind of putting on a pot shot, moving around, circling around, and catching Rozicki when he was rushing in. He can have his head on the line, so he's definitely there to be hit, and he's a big target as well. Who will, like I say, when he's in close, he will just stand in front of you and offload shots. So he's a big target that's going to offload shots. So if you can match it, if you want to match it, you can definitely land shots on him. He's flat-footed. I think he squares up quite a bit as well. So like I say, adding to the fact of him being a big target, he's got a bit of a lack of a jab. He doesn't really set up his shots overly that much, and that's been shown going into the later rounds versus Peralta, where he was just throwing in haymakers. It was wild, it was messy, it showed that he tired. He was just throwing in big haymakers, and if Peralta can take him into the later rounds again, has Rozicki improved enough into the later rounds to be able to, look better? Peralta definitely won typically, well, pretty much all the later rounds from what I saw. He can fight emotionally. I think he did get frustrated. I think Peralta has a frustrating style, but I think Rozicki fed right into that. He can overreach with his jab when he does try and use his jab. He, like I say, in general, that means he's not really finding range too well. I think his technical ability isn't that crazy. I think he's been hurt as well. Obviously, versus Rivas, he was hurt badly, and it shows he can be hurt. I don't necessarily know if Peralta has the power to do so, but any shot can hurt, so possibly that might happen. He covers up on the back foot and doesn't really try counter. Like I say, he can be tired, he can be messy, he can struggle against movers, and that's what Peralta is. And to speak more about Peralta as a fighter, he tries to lure you in. I think he will often invite you in and kind of give you that pressure, and he'll also kind of like feint and wait for you to come in just for them to be able to land that one pot shot and then move around. You see a lot of fighters doing, especially at lower weights as well, when they are against power punchers. The things that you've seen fighters do for years and years is try and lure you in with shots, try and wait for their moment to be able to time you. Also tie up as well when things aren't going your way, when you can't get out of if you can't circle out, you have to tie up there, and then you can't just wait and let the opponents land them big shots, because that's when you're going to get hurt. He moves better, of course, than that of Rozicki. He pairs up his jab nicely when he gets behind it, when he starts using it. I don't think he uses his range well enough, but I think he does pair up his jab and can use his rangy shots well. He circles well, he ties you up, he moves away from power shots quite well. He seems to be able to see Rozicki's shots come in and be able to move away from them. Rozicki does load up a bit, and he can be a bit predictable at times when he is just offloading them hooks. So he did seem to be able to move away from them well. Peralta, I think he's, like I say, got that frustrating style, and it worked in the first fight. He finds his moments to attack, waited for Rozicki to kind of blow his load and to finish his attack, and then he came forward and tried to let go the odd occasional combinations of punches, but he stayed very disciplined throughout the whole fight, and you can see that he stayed very disciplined to a game plan. He's not staying in close too long. He's attempts to counter, so like I say, he's got that relatively good timing at times. It's not excellent, but it's all right, and he was aiming to counter at least. And he's got good conditioning. He was able to last a full fight, pretty much being the El Matador, as he did that celebration at the end of the fight, which was like a holding up of the red kind of flag thing, or whatever, when the El Matador thing, like I'm saying. Negatives about him, I think he can have quite an open guard and does stand quite tall. So if he does get caught on the ropes, I don't think it would take much for Rozicki to be able to stop him. I just don't think Rozicki caught him in that first fight, which was, something in which in general frustrated him even more, because he just wasn't able to, and he was so close to a lot of the time. But I think if he does, then he definitely can hurt Peralta. His timing, like I say, can be off at times. He does smother pretty much all his work, a lot of the time on purpose to be able to tie you up, but it means that in general he's not really landing anything significant or convincing, and perhaps that was why he lost that first fight in the judges' scorecards. I'm not really too sure. I think, like I say, he does invite pressure from the get go. His chin can be in the air and he does lean back. So, again, if he is going to get caught with a shot, it's definitely going to damage, it's definitely going to have an effect. It's just if it happens, he doesn't really make his opponents respect him. I think he can be thrown about. I think Rozicki was trying to throw him about in that first fight a bit, and physically, Peralta was able to be thrown about by Rozicki. He doesn't really stop you from coming in, getting in close, kind of using the range as well as what I think he could do at times. And, something that I wanted to interestingly kind of point up, I think he needs bouncy ropes. He was trying to do a bit of like that rope-a-dope type style in that first fight, or, he spent a lot of time just kind of bouncing off the ropes and then circling around. He needs some bouncy ropes, and, it's the same venue, so it probably will be the similar kind of setup, but some ropes that I've heard are more bouncy than others. So, he needs that, I think, to go in his favour. But just an interesting thing in which I thought I'd pick up upon. Rozicki is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Rozicki will win via KO in round 9. I think it's going to be probably a haymaker or something crazy that does it, but I think he could damage and hurt Peralta in round 1 or 2. Then Peralta will stay on and hang on and tie up a lot and frustrate Rozicki. But I think Rozicki will just keep continuously walking him down, probably go to just throwing a lot of haymakers and things like that. But I think inevitably he will land one, and one will all he'll be needing, and then he'll get that KO win, and it'll be a devastating KO win as of that. So yeah, that's what I'm going to say as my prediction. Then we could go on to fight. I mean, of course, Mikhailian for that WBC title. We kind of do need to see it happen at this point. Yeah, like I say, it's been made twice. Rozicki's more than ready for it. He's more than wanting it. Mikhailian, I think he pulled out last time due to injury. If the injury's all cleared up, then why didn't he fight? If not, then the WBC should strip him, and hopefully we'll see that fight happen next. We'll have to wait and see. If not, similar like I said, Seslak could be a good option to have. A Gulamirian, again, could be a good option to have. I think he's not going to get thrown in with like a Billum Smith or with a Zerda Ramirez. Zerda Ramirez seemingly is going to fight Optaya, so that's the fight that's going on there. But there could be, a background fight for Rozicki versus a Seslak as like a eliminator or something like that. I'm not too sure, but there could be fights to be made. Rozicki doesn't seem he's not down with a massive promoter as of yet, so there could be fights to be made all around the world for him. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like it if you did indeed like this. Subscribe if you are new, and thanks for watching.